So here is the tome. I thought I'd do a quick update today. I have a few minutes to spare so I can show you what I've done so far. So the thing with the face in the front cover is I originally painted it and I painted it in the wrong type of medium. So I actually painted it with gouache as opposed to acrylic paint. And I ended up putting a crackle medium over the top, and unfortunately, as the crackle medium dried, it lifted all of the paint. So I ended up redoing the face in acrylic, and then I've actually sealed it with some varnish, so it's come out really, really spooky and awesome, and I really, really love her. But I've actually been filling the book. So I started with a front page quote, which comes from the TV show Penny Dreadful, a place in the shadow rarely seen but deeply felt. Because the book is going to contain a lot of Victorian Gothic stories, I thought I'd stick with the basic principle of a lot of the stuff that's in Penny Dreadful. So I'm using quotes, and I'm using some of the story content they're actually using in the show, pardon me, and things along that line. So I really struggled with trying to figure out where to start with this book. So I actually started off with anatomy, and I found some really great source documentation from Vesali, who was an anatomist, a Dutch anatomist, and so I tea-dyed a lot of stuff. I printed on tracing paper with some stuff. This one's printed on tracing paper. It's come out really gorgeous. And I just put little bits of quotes everywhere. And then I found, of course, Leonardo da Vinci, some work from him, because he did a lot of anatomy work in looking at the body. One of my first stories that I was going to put in the book was Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, hence anatomy. So the tie-in being anatomy, and then we go into the study of galvanism in the 1780s. And I found a few stories that relates to galvanism and the study and the promises of bringing people back to life through scientific experimentation. They were sort of half right, but yeah. I won't get into the nitty-gritty of it. So I found a great amount of scientific demonstrations, images of galvanism in action, and there were some great stories of people being brought back to life in demonstrations with hung murderers or criminals, and of course we know that galvanism doesn't work. But anyway, and then what I realized I was going to do was between sections I was going to have just something interesting, and this bit is about the bone churches and the decorated skulls. And there are actually many of these kinds of bone churches all over Europe. So I did this little layout, which I rather like. The next bit ended up becoming Mary Shelley, about her inspiration and how she came up with the story of Frankenstein, and where she got her inspiration from, and why it was part of the story and what it represented for mankind and all of that stuff. So I did a couple pages on Mary Shelley, and then of course went into Frankenstein. It's Robert De Niro from the Kenneth Branagh Frankenstein, and I did sort of a hand illustration of sort of the idea being that if you called in a policeman at the time, and you gave a sort of a rough idea of what he looked like, the monster looked like rather. And that's what I ended up doing. And then from there, I'm going to go on to tarot. And then I've roughed out a few ideas of where I want to go and what information I want to put next. So that's where I've gotten to so far. It took me a little while to find a bit of, not so much inspiration, but more motivation in terms of doing the book and remembering that the book is for me, the book isn't for anyone else. It's not a custom order for someone else, and I can really do whatever the damn hell I want in this book, which is important to remember with some projects. So this has really definitely become a personal project of my own, and I'm actually really enjoying it. I work on it every now and again. I haven't, as you can see, done a lot. I've had a few things happen, and also I've got a university study to carry on with, so but I'm planning on getting into the next stages. So for tarot, I will look at the history of tarot, which I've already started researching, and also the beginnings of who designed the actual original tarots, as far as we can tell, because tarot used to actually be much like our playing cards with diamonds, clubs and spades, and hearts. So the tarot actually used to be a card game, but it then became a fortune-telling, divination, esoteric card deck. So I'm looking at I'm doing my research on that at the moment, and that information will go in here. And then I'm hoping to add a few bits and pieces from the actual Penny Dreadful show. So I've actually taken the scorpion, and I've actually drawn it out here. You can probably see the pencil line, which I will end up painting that in the red. And so I've got Dorian Gray and Oscar Wilde and, you know, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. I've got this lovely long list of all sorts of stories and content from the time that will feed into this book and what I end up making it out and what I end up putting in it. So I hope you like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you haven't already. I will be putting up a lot more content in the coming weeks. I am very busy with some new projects that I want to share with you guys. So we'll see you in the next video.